Lauren Udwari is the daughter of an Austrian immigrant with gypsy roots. Oh, I love that. And an Illinois-born American whose lineage includes Louisa May Alcott and James Vanderbilt Cooper. I like that part too. She feels most at home on the road and most like herself when writing poetry. As an empath who grew up caring too deeply about too much, from the tree in her backyard to the overlooked kid in the back of class, she always knew her role was as observer, to see but not be seen. She found her voice in 2020 at the onset of a pandemic while using Instagram photos as visual poetry prompts. She's written 200 poems in 2 years, all unpublished. Soon to be published, maybe? Yeah. Carlos Bardalez was born in Peru, raised in Miami, and served as a combat medic during Operation Iraqi Freedom. He studied English literature at USF and has been a resident of Sarasota for 15 years. He's a poet, an LGBTQ activist, and jack of all trades. I like that. His work has appeared in Sand, Journal out of Berlin, Funicular, Cream City Review, Collateral, among others. So we have Lauren and Carlos, and which one of you wants to go first? Aha.
Go first.
Okay.
Sweet.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Good poetry. You don't need to think your way through the sensation. You just know it. By how it startles you like a dead leaf, not a scorpion. Like seeing yourself in the hallway mirror, not a stranger. You don't need to understand why figs bloom inward, or how warblers always know where to go. To think a poem good, to know it and not anything else, for a fact. We don't have mountains here. We have clouds as big as the Tetons. You should see them in July. Like God's beard, the warmer it gets, the better they get. You don't need to touch them to feel how soft they are. We don't have plain blue sky, we have clouds that cover the whole canvas. Big, endless swirls of paint with no intent but reach. Florida clouds make us feel small and safe. They cradle us from above. We don't have vistas, we have never-ending atmosphere, whipped peaks, and only our imaginations can climb them. Prairie secrets. They tell us we're lucky if the American lotus flower paints the prairie yellow in June, but they don't talk about barbed wire, or alligators doing cannonballs in ponds, or wasps making nests in cattails, or snakeskins getting stuck in our shoelaces. They tell us we're lucky if purple pickerel weed blooms in June too, but they don't talk about eagle chicks falling from nests, or raccoons eating baby softshell turtles before they can leave theirs. Why don't they tell us about the secret campus that's always there? The wind. Have you felt her in November ravaging trees as if to help them take their last breath? Have you seen what she can do in June with nothing but sand in the middle of the Mojave? Only the cactus wren and the jackrabbit can stand it. Have you heard her on the front end of a blizzard in the White Mountains in January? No sound will make you feel so grateful for sturdy walls and a warm bed. She isn't out for blood. She doesn't ache for destruction. She's just moving through the world, making fires bigger, making faces cooler. She isn't too much or too little. She's just enough. Queen Mother. With arms made for cradling and giving birth to flowers, giant white saucers cupping happy bees, drunk from the scent like jasmine petals and whole roses muddled in orange blossom honey. Queen Mother is a vampire, opening her blooms long after we've gone to bed, hoping for bats and moths the size of our hands, fading at first light to keep the schedule she's had for 50 million years. Queen Mother has no throne, just a pocket square of dry dirt on a suburban lawn where she makes do with what she's given, because making something out of nothing is just what she does. Queen Mother is a cactus in my neighbor's front yard, And sometimes they talk about cutting her down to make way for something without spines, for something that bears fruit, for something with a little less backbone. You can't snap your fingers at spring. She arrives on her own time and not all at once. The snail knows as he slides by trilliums the color of day-old blood, blooming in secret under rocks you'd only ever think to step on. She doesn't rise to alarm bells ringing or song sparrows singing to each other from balsam arms. They carried the weight of winter without wanting. Azaleas, orange like overripe nectarines, know the first to unfurl is the first to fade, but they go first anyway. And then the rhododendron and mountain laurel, fat yellow robins practically spilling out of the nest, and red-tailed hawks waiting for them, but never ever waiting for spring. Water. She moves around your edges, rushing to fill the gaps in your persona. She saturates you, makes you feel full, then heavy, a wet rag that can't take more. She's a place to float that looks exactly like a place to drown. She's blue in the sun, black at night, and silver under a wolf moon rising. She's the tide who swallows your secrets, then shows them off to the hungry hunting birds. Much better. I can stand straight now. Running. Moving meditation, mindful of the silky pace, not fast, not slow, rhythm without music, the only time we think about breathing. Not nirvana, not pain, steady, honest work nobody asked us to do. The critic. Sits at the table with wobbly legs, big belly. For all his talking, you'd think he'd remember to floss. He sits there humpbacked and wails. As long as there's a man in the arena, there's a bull, a clown, a spectator, choices to make. He chooses the nosebleeds, but his halitosis analysis still hits the pit and shit if it doesn't smell worse than fighter's sweat. Tears for everyone but the one with the sharp tongue and red pen, the only blood he'll ever shed. Things. Humans make small things like clay cups and big things like Eastern Standard Time, but everything, or at least it seems this way when you're sick, is nothing. The hearse and its lifeless passengers, the unkempt palm tree nesting in power cables, wondering what to do with the 1,000-piece puzzle on your table. Humans have small ideas like chocolate chip cookie day and ground rules for meetings, and big ideas like vehicles that drive themselves. But all of it, when you can't breathe, seems like giant hands moving string around in different shapes and everyone arguing about the one to make. And while they worry about twine, you worry about time and how you tried to fill it with things and ideas and people and places, like trying to put feelings in a satchel. This is what I thought about today, driving home with infected lungs, feeling frightened and relieved by the nothingness of everything. To get here, we had to survive a sea with enough rage to swallow the planet and everyone on it. To stand still on soft sand, we had to tread blinded by saltwater eyes, wondering if we'd flow home or ebb from it. To speak with ease like this, we had to scream, deafening cries at our fear of cutting ties and sinking like ships do to a coral graveyard. She was the perfect friend, only showing her face to me when I looked. Only lending words when mine were wrong for the occasion. When I needed cradling, she wrapped me and made everything dark. When I needed to set fire, she put kindling down and made the air dry. She was the perfect friend, my witness in a crowd that only watches. I grieved before she went. I never, not once, took her for granted. Each time she slipped a pen between my fingers, stoked my rage flames, cried beside me, I was nostalgic in real time. Held awake so she'd know her meaning through my mourning. My perfect friend is gone, and I accept what this means. Paper without a pen, wood without a match, tears with no witness. How do we do it? How do we keep showing up to the party nobody is hosting? Not quite sure if we're mourning or celebrating, or just here to get drunk. It feels good to be tipsy. How else could we fall asleep? How else could we get up, dressed, to work? How else could we build just to smash? What do you like more, making or breaking? It's called the grind for a reason. Put your bones in a blender, everything but your fingers, so it can reluctantly push start. Is it a cage if you step inside? If you forge the iron yourself? If you hide the key from yourself? If you build one for your baby too? Time isn't what we think it is, or what they taught us. It refuses a name. We gave it one anyway, as much as we'd like to. Time doesn't ebb or flow. We can't stop it, watch it, feel it, frame it, box it. It's a circle, a ball, a tumbleweed, a wad of tape. Imagine it rolling, sticky, picking up everything from nowhere to nowhere. Cattle, roadkill, babies, rappers, mansions, wildfires, trees, the whole sky, stuck to time. We were stuck to chaos before. We were the past, now, soon to be, made, makes, making, a cocoon of you and me. Block time, make time, pass time, take time, do time. No matter how politely you request time, you will never have time. Horsepower. Selfish, relentless pursuit of what our hearts want, no matter who gets hurt. Power and grace in a deep embrace, palpable even when standing so still that no whisker flickers. 1 ton of physical matter made soft by fur and mane and velvet muzzles. If only we could stand so stoically as flies danced around our magic. If only we could kick up dust, make the ground shake, fly over this planet while also being of it. Okay, last one. Here's what we're gonna do. With hard backs and soft bellies and minds that swing open. We're gonna take each other's hands and walk, not caring where we're going because we're already there. We'll move fast when we can, slow when we must, and stop if we want to. We've learned that even iron wills can melt. We're gonna cry out loud when it hails and smile quietly at pink clouds, rest if everything hurts, and dance if we get well again. We're gonna walk by detours as much as we take them, and we're only going to look back when there's something good to see. Here's what we're gonna do with the toll we paid. We're gonna ride or die.
Wow. Lord. That was amazing, Lori. Just 4 poems. Dying must be an ecstasy, because if your whole life flashes before your eyes, and your whole life pursuit has been that of pleasure, then imagine an avalanche, a thunderstorm, a focus from a blur into the thousands of tiny existences gathering below the microscope that you are. I am so unabashed to contemplate how letting go can be the biggest thrill, one dare not come to surface. This next poem has to do with the Overstory, a novel, and about a recent friend whom we did not know had a manic multiple personality disorder until it was too late. Trees have the most severe humor. Had to stop by a local oak cluster this morning to plant aloe at their feet, like a misguided prayer. They said, "Thanks for the pet, now go die, LOL." They think it's funny, but they didn't just say that. They said 100 other things, but they know how jokey I am, so there. When Anthony diffused into his multiple selves, all of their meds, he decided to feed the trees, pressing treats into their roots and hollowed bark parts, crumbs of cookie, cakes, enchanted as he sang Melinda Carlisle like a mariachi in a midnight serenata. The tree might have said, "Thanks. Now cut off a hand and bury it, or at least pee on me. Let's find out what's really going on. LOL." His dumb queerdom sang and swang and twirled. The leaves were wind-taken with glee. Crazy is an ecstasy. I just get my nails dirt-caked about it. Smell their newfound foreignness, like seed. Ugh. They say still, "We hate you all, but we also love you. We shall die about it sometime, LOL." And I think these stitches. I let my forehead drag moving backward on the dirt, mock prayerful, humiliated but happy. They say, if a fire came through, we wouldn't care. We know where we're going. LOL. Amen. I think some curse words are important for their etymology only, but I'll spare some of you.
You don't need to worry about
Yeah,
that
do it.
kid over there. She's used to it.
Okay. All right.
Go for it.
The fag mentions blow at the bar. It's not just double entendre, it is the multi-parlance that poets do, like social sleuths. The arraignment of the similar registers and their presentation as connection is something to be celebrated. The cause of celebrity is not the mere instantiating of one art. It is the multifaceted overlap of interests in a sophisticated vessel for this conveyance. Watch me, watch and see, it says. And guess what? We obey. Not the blind eye no longer. Attention, as pure as dopamine. Even intransigence believes it, eats it up to become it themselves. How to decry? Was it not the French Virgin in the pyre screaming out in ecstasy, "Reveal, reveal," that mushroom-headed queen? Which brings me to, what is perdition? The weight of this idea, from all corners diffused into whatever culture we've constructed of ourselves. I don't mean it that way. Need I mention the afterlife? Spare me the follow-up. But perdition, in its pure sense, is that one is lost irrevocably. A one state. Fear is instantaneous, but you know. Then how can you be lost? If not by that grace of wanting, needing, begging to find out. That alone can make you. That alone, my dearest human, my atomic wonder. The eye in the eye of this whole thing. Last. Love poem. If I was a dog in another life and I met you, my tail would wag and 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 wag. Thank you.
I loved them both. Let's clap again, but. So now, lots of questions for our poets, okay? Here you go.
We can also just stand.
You want that?
Yeah.
You should.
Yeah, it's
All
good
right.
to stand.
All right.
Avi, do you have a question? I know you probably do. I could see you just like ready to go. Okay. Who's the question for? Is it for both of us?
It's for both of you.
Okay.
What would you say was the best poem that you've read, and like, has it had any experience in your life? Like,
Oh, the best poem we've ever read and how it's impacted our life.
Can you hold the mic up to you?
Can you hear that?
Is it on? The other one.
There you go.
Well, I don't think I could just pick one, but I could open any Mary Oliver collection, close my eyes, and just point to one, and it would be the one. She's never written a bad poem. She's my favorite. She's my inspiration.
I feel the same way about Ada Limon's collection, Bright Dead Things. There's a poem there, How to Triumph Like a Girl, which is just, I almost committed to memory, so I won't recite. But yeah, Ada Limon, definitely, who happens to be a poet laureate at the time.
Do you find you write better at any particular time of day? Like what, is it just when it comes, or do you sit down to create, or?
I've been part of different panels of poets and novelists. I find that novelists kind of like need to do it every day. Like they allot certain hours in the morning. But with poetry, it's strange because you can't force it. You know, you have to wait for the muse, and sometimes, like, you know, it hits you in the middle of the day, driving, late at night, doesn't matter. But what you can do is edit. Edit you can commit to every day with poetry, but you can't do what novelists do. They can, like, it's kind of like cross-country versus...
100-meter dash.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, he came to me, let's get it fast, you know? As opposed to like with novelists, it's like, yeah, we're in this for the long run, for 5 hours a day.
I would say most likely at night, because I've had more opportunities to like discover a muse and be inspired by something. But I think it can be kind of random, you know, just when you feel inspired. But often late at night when anxiety is rearing its ugly head is when I pull out my phone and write something. If you couldn't tell, a lot of my poetry is inspired by, you know, darker thoughts and things that I just need to express. So. Oh, hey ladies.
If your poetry is inspired more by darker thoughts, do you have a harder time like writing poetry when you're happier?
Yes. If I have a poetry dry spell, it usually means things are going really well in my life.
Same. Yes.
How much rewriting do you do, and how do you know when the poem is finished?
Rewriting, yeah, editing, to me is trying to meet the mind of the world, whether just when you don't edit, it's just your mind, which often needs translation, you know? And that's why I need other sets of eyes to look at something and tell me whether it's understood or feels right, you know? And it's better digested that way.
I agree, and I have my poetry work group, Ben and Bubba, right here, who have helped me realize that, you know, poems can make sense to me, but maybe not others sometimes. So it is really good to test them out on people and figure out how to strengthen that connection.
have you been writing?
2020 was an interesting year, and I felt so overwhelmed by politics and environmental crises and just personal growth challenges that that's when I started writing poetry, so just 3 years.
I'd always write poems at the end of my notebooks in school and whatnot, but I never really committed them to collecting. You know, be like, oh, algebra is done, whatever. There goes the notebook with its poems. But only recently I started collecting for the past 10 years. Please.
Since you mentioned putting your poems on Instagram, and I'm sure you both dealt with negative criticism at some point, how do you handle that when you receive that type of feedback, or have you experienced that?
Personally, I haven't put much on Instagram because I just haven't posted much. I'm very private, I guess, or reserved more rather. So I haven't had negative criticism about it.
I think because I'm in the content writing world professionally for the tech industry, I'm used to this process of, you know, you put something out there, you get feedback, and the feedback is just an input, and it's valuable to have whether or not you accept it or not. But that's definitely a skill to cultivate, is how do you put yourself out there and be open to how it's interpreted and how it's received, and can you still honor what's working for you, even if it doesn't work for other people. I think that's the most important thing. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, guys.